every world leader has this person behind them that you know nothing about. I interviewed Nelson Mandela's chief of staff, and she's an 85-year-old woman. I still have a screenshot of the notification, but like Reese Witherspoon tagged you in a post. Best investment any founder can make. It doesn't have to be perfect to get it out there. My whole argument that I make at the end of the book, like teaching me my context.
You're listening to In the Dome with Soph and Belle, two podcast fans turned founders building the home for podcast communities.
We're taking your favourite hosts out of the studio to unpack why they got started, the fandom, the stories, and the connections that make podcasts so powerful.
So powerful that we decided to build a company around it.
Let's get into it.
Before we get started, we wanted to say a huge thank you to all the Domies for getting behind the pod. We really appreciate all the love.
Absolutely. And if you're a big podcast fanatic like us, then make sure to jump onto our website at homeofdome.com and join our waitlist. We have big things coming up and you want to be the first to know.
Today, we're in the Dome with Phoebe Saintilan-Stocks, the founder of media company Missing Perspectives. Welcome, Phoebe.
Thank you for having me.
We're here at the beautiful Arm's Length, the wine bar in Potts Point.
Best steak frites in town. Now, Missing Perspectives, for those who don't know, is a women's media company that spotlights underrepresented female voices, stories, and perspectives, as the name suggests, through podcasts, long-form articles, and social media. And we are so excited to be sitting here with the woman behind it all, Phoebe. Very excited to have you here. How are you feeling?
Leaning into the microphone.
I need to. It's very Cheryl Sandberg. Cheryl, if you're listening, I would love to see you. Belle, what can we expect in today's episode?
We have got quite the conversation in store for you. So we chat through the origins of Missing Perspective, how Phoebe built up the community to 10 million reach per month. Incredible. We also talk about the power of female storytelling and what the role of community is in media.
You have had a very big month and you have just come off the back of a massive trip to Kenya following the writing of your very first book. How are you feeling?
I am feeling great. And like I've been saying to everyone, holidays are underrated because a lot of founders just like never take holidays.
Holidays get a really bad rap. Yeah. We should be talking about how good holidays are.
Because I'm like,
Take
I hadn't taken a holiday since founding Missing Perspectives. Like I'd been overseas, but I'd worked the entire time. This time I took 2 weeks off, no emails, nothing. Full detox, so came back very energized and motivated. Shout out to holidays.
Holidays, if you're listening.
I finished the book around July and then it was just copy editing with the publisher, which took like a long time. I'm getting the print copies tomorrow. So we finally got to like hold the book.
Hold the baby.
For people who might be living under a rock and aren't familiar with Missing Perspectives, can you just give us a bit of a rundown of what you've built, the mission that you're on, the podcast under your network?
I still haven't like nailed the elevator pitch. I established Missing Perspectives, it would be like 4 years ago now. I was living with Channel 7's political correspondent, a young woman, really cool. We're still really good friends. I think Missing Perspectives came out of conversations with her about what it was like being a young woman working in the news industry. I was a young woman working in politics at a time when we had Scott Morrison as Prime Minister. Brittany Higgins was coming forward. Like there were a lot of conversations happening. And I think young women just wanted to be heard. I bought the Squarespace. Like I didn't really think too much of it. Within 3 weeks, I was getting pitches from young women.
Wow.
Because it just spread by like word of mouth. Because young women want to write. And like a lot of the time you don't get paid. But from the outset, we've paid. Whether it was like $50 when I first started, when it was just out of my own pocket, to now where we obviously have actual rates. The turning point was when we partnered with Hello Sunshine and Reese Witherspoon posted about us on her Instagram. I still have a screenshot of the notification, but like Reese Witherspoon tagged you in a post. We had 500 followers when they did that. From there, we got brands interested. We started out as like a blog doing opinion pieces, but now we've got news. We have our women's sports show Momentum, which is now on TV. We kind of frame it as like it's shameless but sport. We also talk about beauty with athletes and stuff like that and lifestyle.
Okay, cool.
But that literally went to #1 sports podcast in Australia in our last season. At one point, we were 1 below Joe Rogan.
Are all of these things being like screenshot and framed and like the whole like blown up onto like wallpaper and things? I would hope so.
I have a wins folder on my desktop with screenshots of emails, like social media. And if you need it, you just click in and like go and look.
Love that. Public view that. Send us the link. Sort of want to be part of that journey.
What are you seeing that is working? Because you are clearly going from strength to strength.
The biggest audience is in women's sport, which I find really interesting because sport journalism has the lowest female representation. The audience has always been there. We were reaching millions of people during the Women's World Cup. I hate saying we were doing it before everyone was, but we were reporting on women's sport before everyone else cottoned on that like people like women's sport. Whereas now it's like the norm, which is amazing to see. Politics has been a really interesting one because I think we kind of sit in a middle ground between kind of like the Daily Oz and Cheek. We went to the budget this year for the budget lockup with Hannah. And the Daily Oz. And that was such an amazing experience. What was interesting about the budget is the formats we were doing were reels and like come with us. And we got shat on by Media Watch, got us on the ABC. They clipped our reels to make us look like idiots. And then I saw the ABC doing the exact same formats in the following week. I'm like, you're making fun of new media, but then you're also doing it yourself.
Totally. No. It's all like, look at these like, influencers with their little cameras doing their little day in their lives.
Yeah.
So they work out how many people are actually engaging with it, realizing that that's actually the thing that cuts through, and they go, well, hang on, wait a minute.
Yeah. Somehow that's something.
There could be something to this. Would you say that your definition, like you internally, as well as the company's definition of missing perspectives, has evolved since that sort of ideation phase?
I would say we've evolved, but we have the same mission.
Yeah.
At the beginning, it was like, we're a newsroom. Whereas now I would say we're a media company. Moving away from doing breaking news has helped our work-life balance. I don't know how journalists do that kind of stuff. I like switching off at like 5:30, honestly.
And it's important.
And then you need your holiday.
Then you need a holiday. Then you need to go to Kenya. I'd love to be like non-fiction Hello Sunshine.
I'm obsessed with Reese Witherspoon.
I mean, who isn't?
Would love to understand like what those early days of building was like.
I was emailing brands and writers before I even had a website or something to show. The first writer who agreed to write for us was a young woman called Fresh, who was living in Afghanistan. She was like running a non-profit that was driving buses that she converted into libraries, into war-torn communities in the country so children could come on and read. Since she started writing for us, like we've evolved as a company. She's spoken at the UN Security Council. She's now in exile in the UK, but we got to meet in London last year and it was such a full circle. The highlight of everything. It's hard when you're an outsider in media because you don't know anyone. And something Zara Seidler at the Daily Oz and I always talk about is that we don't even see ourselves as journalists. And that's been really interesting to navigate as two people now running startups in media. But it's all about trying to build connections. And that's why I always say the best investment any founder can make is in LinkedIn Premium. And that is in like no way sponsored. Because you can literally just cold message anyone. The best cold email ever was I emailed Meghan and Harry's team because I saw they were looking at partnering with a bunch of media and that got to their chief of staff. So we've now had meetings with him. Like there is no downside to cold emailing people. And that's how we got to Hello Sunshine too, by cold emailing the CEO of Sarah Harden, who's Australian.
Wow.
So lots of cold emailing. We like didn't have an office and we were also going into lockdown, which I also think may have contributed to our growth because everyone was just at home doing nothing. I was still like very much working full time. I would have like my work laptop and my Missing Perspectives laptop and just like go between.
Been there. Done that.
It started getting crazy enough that I then took a leave of absence from my job and just never went back. At the time, we were like talking to an investor who was going to come on board, who had invested in like a bunch of other media companies at the time. Biggest mistake ever was like, I'm just going to quit my job because things are looking really good with this guy. I quit my job. And then things basically fell through with him. 2 weeks later, we then parted with Mecca, who we've been parted with them for 3 years now.
Wow. Is that what sort of got you over the line? And
at the time, I think they were really trying to be the company for gender equalities that like Patagonia is for the environment. There was like a lot of alignment with the work we were doing. They trust us a lot in terms of like the content we do for our own platform and for them too. And then Google also came on board in a big way.
As they tend to do.
Yeah. I'm like, we love Google so much. Because at the time, I think Google was doing a lot in the news industry back then. We built an app with them 2 years ago that connects newsrooms and brands with young female reporters.
Wow,
so that was like a Google project.
To get into more stories, I have one more,
literally
another like tally, like notch in the belt of like things that Missing Perspective are doing. Maybe like a tree like diagram. You're in these rooms with these incredible women. You often are, looking at panels of very distinguished, career-driven, ambitious women. What can sometimes happen with these events is the question lines go down this hole of, how have you been able to manage running a company as a woman, or what barriers have you? We need to have the conversations, absolutely, but at the same time, do we really want to pigeonhole these incredibly distinguished women just down to their gender?
Our whole premise of high agency women has been platforming female founders and operators and conversations around women in tech, but not in a negative way. All the conversations with women in venture capital and investing in startups has been no funding goes to women, blah, blah. And that is so true and something we've reported on consistently. But to get more female founders in, you have to be platforming the really positive stories too. That has been our North Star with that series.
Obviously, Missing Perspectives is very much about those underrepresented female voices, but with the book, you're still focusing on those voices that are maybe often overlooked but are still so impactful. There is still that missing perspective, theme there. What is it about that idea of those overlooked but still really impactful voices that is so core to your work and mission?
Funny, I hadn't thought of that connection until a few months ago. The fact that people interviewed in the book are also missing perspectives in a way.
So it wasn't intentional.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of it.
So intrinsic to you.
So the book is called The Right Hand. I was asked the other day, why did you land on that name? It was a name all along. It fits so well. The book is a series of conversations with chiefs of staff to presidents and prime ministers. I got the idea when Katie Telford, who's Justin Trudeau's longtime chief of staff, started following Missing Perspectives. I had a few calls with her in the week. She talks about Justin. I'm this is so funny.
Justin, first name basis.
It's so fascinating because every world leader has this person behind them that you know nothing about. I don't know Albo's chief of staff's name. He's probably running the show. Once I had her, I emailed a bunch of others and they all said yes. None of them really get requests for interviews anyway. I think they thought it was really cool to be able to speak about their own career and experience. My whole argument that I make at the end of the book is by spotlighting jobs like theirs that are just outside of the spotlight, we're expanding what leadership can look like. E.g. Tree Payne and Taylor Swift. There are so many people who are... There are so many people who are just as powerful in a way and important, but you don't know anything about them. What's also interesting is that the chief of staff role, women are so underrepresented. So that's why it's incredible to spotlight amazing women who have been in the roles. I interviewed Nelson Mandela's chief of staff and she's an 85-year-old woman. No one knows about this.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I think what's really exciting about a lot of the Missing Perspective podcasts is they're all interview format. A lot of them, you speak to these incredible guests.
Yeah.
Hasn't come in the content strategy discussions.
You're teaching me my content strategy.
So the strategy is...
This is the play.
It's so funny you say that because I was listening to the Shameless co-founders on Female Founder.
I just listened to that. Literally this morning.
How good was it? Oh my God. Okay, we'll have to debrief that.
Yeah, debrief, love them. It's just so funny that they then had to decide to launch an interview format because they hadn't done that yet.
The beauty of interview formats, and particularly yours, because it's not just one, sort of generic, we'll get on who we get on. There's a real through line and a real framework to each, whether it's female athletes or it's high agency women, but you get some incredible women on there. What is it about the podcast format that you saw an opportunity that you didn't see in the other media formats? So what was so compelling about it?
There are amazing podcasts out there like the Female Athlete Project. We really saw a gap for our audience, which was Gen Z women who were also interested in lifestyle. And we've done a lot with Nike and e.g. Izzy Hume won the women's only half marathon this year. And we did an interview with her because she's also a data scientist and has a PhD. And it's all about the whole...
So it's a multi-hyphenate.
Yeah. And it's hosted by Kat Sasso, who is awesome. She also has a strong male following too. I think that was a great way to bring men in. She's also an expert on sport. Momentum is definitely our flagship podcast. We have Booksmart, which is with female non-binary authors, women doing cool things, come into our studio and do a swipe carousel of the video on social. But everyone kept commenting me can't you just make this a podcast? Then we just made an RSS feed. That's how informal those other two were.
Why do you think that was, that your audience was craving this audio format?
Because if you're listening to a conversation, I just think podcast is the way to go. Those two were just made like one afternoon, branding on Canva. Then we have High Agency Women. That's sponsored by Blackbird. That's all about platforming female founders, investors, operators.
I was listening to an episode with Michelle Battersby. Loved it.
Yeah. Every time I talk to her, I'm like, how are you so perfect? So charismatic.
I'd love to understand what that creative process has been, or maybe it's in the works right now. You're trying to figure out what that process is. And how are you deciphering between what makes the cut for a show and what doesn't? Like, what's that criteria?
Where I think early on, our approach has been trial like many different things and just see what works and what doesn't. We're more likely to just be scrappy and just start putting content out there and just see if it lands, rather than like spend like a year and a half developing this one idea and then, you know, preparing the launch, then eventually getting it out there. Diversifying our content platforms is so important. Like even like our newsletter, we're trying to figure out now like how we relaunch that. I think for a long time we were so focused on website and social media. Instagram was nearly banned for a lot of newsrooms. I don't know if you were following that.
Oh, yes.
It's happened in Canada. If you're in Canada and you search like the Daily or Missing Perspectives, it won't come up.
Okay, I definitely missed a chapter. Like, sorry.
That really showed for media companies the importance of having podcast newsletter.
Yes.
Where you're direct to your audience. Being on Instagram, it's like having to rent a house for your audience or something.
Yeah.
It's not direct. You're going through a platform.
Yeah, it's a great analogy.
I would also say like the Spotify team has also been incredible in terms of platforming momentum and making sure we can reach a bigger audience. They're also skewing so heavily towards video too. That's a really good fit for us.
I'd love to go back a little bit to momentum and understand how that partnership with Binge came about, because I think that's a really interesting trend that we're seeing across podcasting. These streaming services now hosting vodcasts and the rise of vodcasts and what that looks like for a brand engaging with that audience as well. How did that come about for you guys?
The decision we made from the outset was Momentum was going to be a very expensive show to make because we wanted to make it TV level. We'd always had the mindset this would be great for TV. You don't really see young women on TV talk about sport, particularly on like KO and Fox. Binge was really wanting to expand their sports offering, also get more young women onto Binge. We ended up partnering with their team. So Momentum is on Binge, KO and Fox Sports. And it's so cool because on a Saturday morning, you'll put on Fox and Kat will be on the TV talking to like an amazing athlete. We're currently working on season 3. But it's been interesting seeing streamers move into the podcasting space too. We had spoken to Binge around like we have like a TV style format in terms of like a panel and a desk. And they were like, no, we really want to hone in on podcast format. That's something I didn't expect.
In those conversations you've had with the Binge team, what have they said about the power of podcasts now on the streaming services that they're really starting to see? Like, what's that value that they see in the medium?
Like fully aware that audiences are gravitating towards podcast format. It's just like a trend that I hadn't expected at all.
I feel like no one really knows the answer yet. We're all just seeing these trends and just trying to figure out how we can make our own play on it.
The trends are more towards longer form video and away from reels.
I mean, and you guys broadly are reaching 3.5 million people a month. It's incredible.
The last 2 months has been 10 million. Yeah, it's like crazy.
When are we updating the socials?
Yeah. Like, we need to update.
Like, update the
That's
notes.
incredible. What do you think has contributed to that spike? Has it been one of your flagship shows or change in content strategy?
I think a lot of it would be we're doing a lot more junkets now. So like when actors come out here for films and TV, we go and interview them. And I think a lot of startups aren't doing that, particularly like youth media. Like it's normally like R29 or Junkie. Timely content on pop culture too. Like that would probably be the biggest one. We have Ali Daisy on our team, writes amazing op-eds about film, TV, entertainment that have been landing so well. With Instagram, it's hard to see what it is because it'll just be one random piece of content that we would not have expected to explode. Just does.
Is there a particular interview or guest that has really resonated with you or one that you
my God.
reflect on quite fondly. Pretty straight in the deep end. And now that we've worked out that you have interview podcasts, I think to think of a specific guest is testing you.
Out of your entire content catalogue.
An interview that I loved was we had Sam Austin, the Governor General, come in. I think we had 30 minutes in the studio booked, but we were there for nearly 2 hours.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
We could have yapped for the rest of the day. She'd clearly done her research. She'd be like, oh yeah, because Alicia, you wrote that article last week about XYZ. We also did a live podcast recording at the Oz Open. Kat did with an amazing panel, and one of the tennis players who was Destiny. I don't know if you followed the AO, but she was the rising Aussie star. Buy all her outfits on eBay and they'd be like vintage, and she was incredible. And now she's like playing at the US Open.
We've made some jokes about me teaching you about the content.
Can I get you as a strategist?
You've done incredible things. The numbers you are reaching are insane. To people that are listening that really want to, harness your experience and build their own podcast, build their own community potentially, what are the maybe tangible tips that you would give them to achieve that?
It doesn't have to be perfect to get it out there. I am extremely pro just getting out a scrappy version and then changing things later if you need to. Whereas I think the trend, particularly for women, is it has to be perfect before you get it out. Get yourself a really good group of advisors who you can have as a sounding board. They would be the 2 biggest ones.
How did you go about finding your advisors?
Honestly, I did a job description that went out. It's like a careers newsletter called Ethical Jobs. That's how we found our initial group. What I found is that you need a different group of advisors for each phase that you're at. The group we had early on is very different to our advisors now. We have our investors who are incredible. Google introduced us to a bunch, and through Mecca too, I do executive coaching. They have that for a lot of their partners.
Oh wow, brilliant.
We thought it was very much just people I'd reached out to or had a background in content and media. I didn't even know how to monetize the brand. We didn't have a partnerships pack until 9 months in.
But then you're landing all these incredible partnerships. It's like the industry's changing so much. I feel like everyone's still in that beginner's mindset.
Totally. We were talking with a brand about a campaign we have coming up, and they're like, can we put ads on your website? So I just hadn't thought of offering that. A lot of it you learn on the job, but also from other people in media.
It's also so valuable for a brand to have that proximity to your media company and what you're doing. I can imagine that's hugely valuable in those conversations.
Our audience is so engaged.
Yeah.
I get scared posting because I'm like, what are they going to think about this? They'll let us know in DMs what they think. But that's really good for brands. We've had to turn down big brand partnerships because our audience isn't going to like that we're partnering with.
Yeah. Who is that typical listener or reader for Missing Perspective? Who is tuning in each week?
Our social audience, which is by far our biggest, is 18 to 35, young women. It's also very global. That's why it's really cool when we're in America for work. We have meetups with Momentum. What has been fascinating is that's a 50-50 split. A lot of men are listening to Momentum.
That's a really part of the conversation around gender and media is how do we actually engage men in stories that spotlight women's perspectives and voices. I think that is so important. I'd love to understand where you sit on that spectrum, how you approach that with audience engagement and content strategy.
Early on, our content was very much catered to women. We went through a deliberate rebrand. It's all well and good platforming young women, but if men aren't also joining and listening in, that's one of the most important parts. That's why with women's sport too, it's so great having a male audience there. The last thing we want to do is be an echo chamber. A lot of the time you can fall into that trap.
How do you sort of keep your finger on the pulse there and really understand who your audience is and what they want?
Through reading comments. We did one yesterday, an analysis of the life of a showgirl. I think we've hit 150 comments, going through and understanding their different perspectives. You get to know your audience, the people who comment all the time, also through events too. It's really important to actually meet your audience in person too and take it offline.
It sounds like you have really created this really strong community around Missing Perspectives, and I love what you just said there about you guys having real world events. We are really interested in community builders and content creators in that space and how important community really is to a company's success. What are those other ways that you guys are really focused on harnessing that community in the most effective ways?
Tash on our team is also very into like surveying our audience. And I think that has been really interesting just through Typeform, where we can check in and see whether their media diet's changing, whether they come to Missing Perspectives through social media or a website or podcast, and through just like emailing direct and getting coffee.
Coffee with the
Readers and audience. Yeah.
Wow.
We've got so many of our like biggest readers in real life. Integrating our audience into our content too. We have a shoot called Leave It on the Table, a dinner party shot in a really beautiful way. We did one with Bumble, and it was amazing also inviting some of our readers to join, because the whole premise was like a shoot of what women would talk about at dinner. So we're doing another one next week.
I love that idea.
Do you guys need to come to one?
That is so exciting. I mean, real world events are so important for us. We think about it a lot. What we do like to do though is get people listener questions sent in about hosts. We let some people know that we have a particular guest coming in, and this listener is a big fan of Missing Perspectives, has been a follower for honestly years. So this is from listener Remy.
Shout out.
Now, listener Remy is a female founder herself, building an incredible startup called Pond World. Clock it.
Oh my God, love.
Do you know Pond?
Yeah.
Listener Remy's gonna be stoked. You have built this incredible women's media company. A, it's a media company, and B, it's targeting female audiences. Imagine you would have gotten a lot of pushback that, this won't work. And listener Remy, doing a very similar thing, would love to know how you overcame that criticism and how you pushed forward and really just trusted those initial gut instincts.
Yeah. What I found early on is that everyone thought we were a charity. That's what we had to come up against. Wow. Female storytelling isn't just charitable, it's valuable.
Absolutely.
How we overcame that was just being able to point to examples like Hello Sunshine, being able to show that the female audience is really valuable and they hold a lot of spending power too. To this day, people often ask, so how do you guys make money? They don't realize the value of storytelling. I think just being able to point to examples of people who have done it really well and the spending power of your audience too. What we also found is that a lot of newsrooms and brands were getting in contact with us saying, can you connect us with a female reporter here or there? And that's why we ended up building the app. We're going to build that into a SaaS product, like subscription software for newsrooms.
When's that launching?
We've got 400 reporters piloting it at the moment. I'm thinking it's a next year thing.
Yeah. We've spoken a lot about the power of community and in real life events and how important that is. Would love to ask you, if you were to host a meetup, a dream meetup for the Missing Perspectives listeners and readers, walk us through that. What would that look like? Where are we? What are we talking about? What are we listening to? What are we doing?
Take us there. New York, what we did was amazing. It was at a bar in West Village called Moonflower, which is run by an Australian. We all just sat on the sidewalk. It was summer. I think it was before the election. A lot of people showing up to talk about politics and everything that was happening, but also just at the end of the day being a group of young women. And I think what made it so good is seeing followers on the other side of the world show up and who were all incredible in their own right. Doing that again would be amazing. In Australia,
can we suggest
this amazing restaurant we're in right now? Arm's length in Potts Point. Or Hamilton Island. Let's all go to Qualia and do something.
We should all take a group holiday.
Let's do a group holiday to Qualia. Yeah.
Qualia would be very Nine Perfect Strangers.
Yeah. Let's do that.
Okay, well, we'll get it in the calendar. We'll book it in.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Phoebe, this has been such a fun conversation. You are so brilliant. What do the listeners need to know about you, what you've got coming up, where they can find you?
Book is coming out on the 4th of November. You can also pre-order before then on Penguin, and that will direct you to other booksellers. And then, follow at Missing Perspectives on Instagram. That's it. I'm is it anything? I think that's it. That's my CTA.
I love this. It's
a great CTA. What should the people do, so?
The people should be following us at Home of Dome on all your social medias, TikTok, Instagram. Be comment, subscribing, wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, jump on our website at homeofdome.com and join our waitlist. We've got some big things coming up and you want to be the first to know.
We're Soph and Belle.
And we'll see you next time in the Dome. Love it.
Slay.
That was so fun.
Incredible. This podcast was recorded on Gadigal land. We would like to acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional owners of this land and the oldest storytellers in the world. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land.